phone just started blowing up. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. So technically, the Secretary of State's office found that under the state constitution, if there's a special session after the November vote, then the newly elected legislators will take office officially, and the previous legislators for those seats would exit office. And so if there had been a special session, then myself and the other new legislators newly elected in November would have officially taken office and actually made the votes, and the old legislators would not have. And I think that's partly the reason the special session was canceled. Shortly after the Secretary of State made that finding, we heard shortly thereafter the special session was canceled.
I just learned that.
I'm really surprised
say.
because the other offices, County Commission, for example, the old ones stay there until 1 January, but you had to be sworn in. The incoming had to be sworn in before you actually sat at the bench. That's surprising, Tom.
Yeah, apparently it's only happened twice in the last 100 years. I think it was in 1931 and 1935. The Secretary of State's office did the research and interpreted the state constitution. It's very rare that there's a special session after the November vote because we're so close to the general session. If there's something, why not just wait until the general session? So it hasn't happened since the 1930s. It was about to happen this year, and there's a minor constitutional crisis as to who was going to actually take the vote. And if there had been a special session, then I would have had an official vote.
I wonder if that was the reason Justice backed off on the special session.
I suspect it is. And like I said, Bill, the special session was on, and then the Secretary of State's office did their research, ruled that the incoming legislators would be the ones to make the vote, and then shortly thereafter the session was canceled.
Now, that would have only have applied to the legislators, not to the governor, correct?
I believe that's correct. But I'm not sure about that, Rob. The discussion that we were having didn't really focus on the governor. It was focused more on the Senate and the House side of things.
Aren't you glad you have a legal background so you can answer these questions?
Well, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, unless it's defined in the Constitution, if it applies for one body, you'd think it applied to all
the way across the board.
All the way across. So I would think that, based on what Tom said, it could equally apply for the governor.
But we don't know that for sure.
We don't know that. That's interesting. Well, that's why we need Ferretti back on.
Logic will dictate, right?
Well, and what I was going to say is it's interesting because it's not happened before. So there's really no precedent.
Well, it has happened in the 1930s.
In the 30s.
It happened twice.
And it's the Secretary of State. So just for fun, was it the current Secretary of State or the new Secretary of State who made that discovery, discovery?
It wasn't. It was not Mac. It may have been the chief of staff. I can't remember who. I think it was someone from their legal office.
Deke
Kersey.
Secretary of State.
Deke Kersey, the legal counsel.
I think it was him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Deke's a great guy.
Yeah, just for fun, let's connect the dots that may or may not be connected. In talking about the governor now, if this does applies to the governor. The governor would have no authority then if this is true, and because did not get reelected.
Not really a lame duck.
Yeah, not
right?
really a lame duck. So this opens up all sorts of. We could spend a whole 2 hours, Rob, talking about the possibilities of this.
It's a real stagmire.
Yeah, it's a stagmire, and getting deeper and deeper.
Tom, did you support Randy Smith for the Senate presidency?
I did. Yep. Randy. I've known Randy since 2017, 2018, back when I ran for U.S. Senate. He's always been a gentleman. He's always been available to mentor me as I learned this whole new exciting world called politics, and so he's been available to me as a counselor. Same when I started this state Senate race last fall. So I've had a good relationship with Randy for a long time, but really, irregardless of the relationships, for me, the vote, as always, comes down to what's best for West Virginia and what's best for my constituents in the Eastern Panhandle. And Randy, I've got a good relationship with Randy. I know Senator Rucker has a very good relationship with Randy. he's a very humble guy. I think that with Randy, what we're going to see is less top-heavy leadership and more distributed authority and power amongst the talent that we have in the Senate and amongst the committee chairs and committees. I think that's a good thing. I think that brings to bear, all the gifts of the different senators representing their districts around the state. It may be a little bit slower at times as we work through and more people have more input. But I think eventually we're going to achieve a better result just because it won't be, just one or two or three people dictating what happens, but more of a collaborative process where senators actually feel like they have a voice in what gets done.
Do you think that's one of the reasons that Eric Tarr did not fare better than what he did in these three fellows running against each other?
It's a good question. I met with Senator Tarr. He was gracious enough to drive up, and we had breakfast. I had a great meeting. I was very impressed with him. For me coming in as a freshman senator, I don't know. I'm not privy to all the history of the relationships and the workings that have gone on previously. All I can say was I was very impressed with Senator Tarr. He's obviously a brilliant person, very successful businessman. For those that don't know, he has a chain of physical therapy businesses. He's getting construction, real estate development. Brilliant mind, especially when it comes to finance and economic policy. I don't think that he had the support to be a serious contender for the Senate presidency. But from my perspective, I was looking I was going to support Randy just because I like the fact that he's a humble person. He's a godly man, and I think he's going to pull the best players around him to work as a team, and as opposed to a top-heavy leadership model.
Did you meet with Senator Kubo as well?
I did. Yep, I met with Senator Kubo, also a very impressive guy. So it was a tough decision. You've got three excellent people, very qualified candidates, and so it was not an easy decision. I mean, we were in the Senate chamber. I mean, it was good.
2-3 hours, something like that.
At least it was probably closer to 4.
Okay,
I think.
I think the story written about it said 4.
Yeah.
Was it 4?
Yeah, we were in there for a good long time. There was good discussion. Everybody got to present their case, and there were some questions. So it was very transparent. Some of the issues that people had were very frankly and openly discussed. But at the end of the day, I made the decision that I thought was best for the Eastern Panhandle and best for the state of West Virginia.
So, I'm sorry. So when then, given all the changes, when do the committee assignments come out? What are your hopes for your own personal committee assignments?
We're working on committee assignments right now. That was one of the interesting things with Randy in particular. I think with the other two candidates, committee assignments were already largely predetermined. I think with Randy, one of the things I liked is he really didn't make promises as far as to who was going to get what committee, and he wasn't really horse trading committee assignments for votes. So we're working through that process. For me and my personal predilections for committee assignments, this is one of those things where I still realize I have a lot to learn, and it's kind of like when I wanted to get married, I said, Lord, just I don't even know my heart as well as you do, so just give me the best wife that you've got for me. And so I'm kind of in the same position here, just praying about where God wants me to go on committee assignments. I think my strengths and the discussions that we've had to date, I think my personal strengths with my business background and my legal background, the natural fits for me would probably be on economic development and or judiciary committee.
Tom, going back to Randy Smith very quickly, we tend to oversimplify when it comes to politics. In the case of the leanings, a Chamber of Commerce Republican or social warrior Republican. Now, I realize that's an oversimplification, but that's shorthand that we all use. Eric Tarr yesterday implied that we would be shifting from kind of the Chamber of Commerce emphasis with Craig Blair to more of a social warrior emphasis with Randy Smith. How valid is that observation?
Well, I think that first of all, I take exception to that term "social." I think that the left has done a good job of framing the conversation as social issues, which connotes less importance. I think when we're talking about social issues, what we're really talking about are constitutional issues, constitutional overreach, or freedom, individual freedom type issues. So let me just reframe the terminology first. So will we be dealing with solely a business as usual mindset or a Chamber of Commerce mindset, or will we be dealing more with constitutional overreach, individual freedom type issues? That was a concern of mine, frankly, Bill. And I had frank conversations with Randy. So I said, look, it's important that we address some of these individual freedom issues, like vaccine freedom, among others, for parents, and but we still have to make sure the trains run on time. We have a duty to the people of West Virginia to make sure that government runs well. We pass a solid budget that's going to balance, and the services are provided. And the answer to that concern of mine is not just that we're going to focus on the freedom issues, but not focus on running government well. This really helped persuade me to support Randy even more. So the answer to that is he's relying on the experts around him and his committees, his committee chairs. He's picking good people, I'm confident, in those positions, and those are the ones that are going to make sure the budget balances and make sure the trains run on time. So we have an old saying in the Army. You have to learn how to walk and chew bubblegum at the same time. So can we address the constitutional freedom issues and the budget and the make the trains run on time issues? The answer is yes, we can do both.
Yeah. Can I have
Yeah.
Constitutional freedom issues, Tom? That is very much in the eyes of the beholder. And looking, and from what I interpret a lot of the Republicans to be, the gun rights is viewed different than the transgender issues. And it depends, again, which side of the fence you're on, whose liberties are being restricted.
Well, yeah, I think that's right. The real dividing line for our society as a whole right now is what is the standard, right? Because you can say this is good, this is bad, but whenever you say something is good or we should, you're connoting a standard, right? So what is the standard? And historically, what's made our country great is that we've applied a Judeo-Christian standard. It's a standard that's higher than any of us. It's above us. It's outside of us. It's subjective, and then the other standard that we're seeing is individual choice based on personal feelings, and I think that's the individual feelings standard. I think is extremely dangerous because, frankly, my feelings have changed on many subjects over the years, and so I might fight to the death on a standard I'm applying because of how I feel about something, but 2 years later, I very well may change my feelings. But the traditional Judeo-Christian moral standard that we've applied since the founding of our nation, that's made us the greatest, most prosperous, most generous, most benevolent country in the history of the world, I would point us to that standard.
Go ahead, Maria.
So do you see then, I think what I'm hearing you say is you see a real shift in the way the Senate operates under the new presidency? You think that's a good thing in comparison, in contrast to the way it's been run before?
Yeah, time will tell, Maria. I think that things will definitely be different. And I've worked a lot of different places around the world. So let me just give you a comparison, okay, by way of analogy. So in the U.S. military, we can make decisions very quickly because we have a hierarchy, and it's very clear what the chain of command is. And a good leader obviously takes counsel from the troops around. He'll listen to their sergeant major, their officers, their troops take in, and then make a decision. But once the decision is made, you can move out, and you can take time to collaborate, or you can do it very quickly, and you move out. Now shift. I've worked in several embassies around the world, and let's just focus on one in particular. So I was deployed to Israel. I worked out of the embassy in Israel. By culture, the Israelis are very collaborative, and the State Department also is very collaborative. So there's much less of a hierarchy, and there's more sitting around the table. Now, everybody's involved in the collaborative system. Everybody gets to have a say. For someone coming from a military background, it could drive me crazy sometimes, because I'm like, okay, let's make the decision. We've had the discussion. Let's make a decision and move out. So I think we're going to shift away from more of the strict hierarchy type of and
you're
model.
Okay with that?
Well,
you're going to learn.
For the purposes of effectively representing the Eastern Panhandle, I think that's a good thing, because I think I'm going to have a greater voice. Yes.
Senator-elect Tom Willis, our guest here on the program. Tom, I want to talk about a couple of things specific to the Eastern Panhandle. One is locality pay, and two is roads. And with roads, specifically moving the Department of Highways office from Burlington to somewhere in the Eastern Panhandle, Berkeley County, Jefferson County, Morgan County, but specifically Berkeley County. Any thoughts on that and the reality of something like that actually happening?
We had this discussion last week, I think, with the county commissions in the Eastern Panhandle and our state delegation. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me that that's where the local division headquarters is, out west of Romney. I don't want to take anything away from Hampshire County, but I do believe that we need a new presence here in the Berkeley County area. I mean, this is where the action is. This is where the growth is. And one of the
this is where ID1 is.
Right. And one of the practical issues you have is, when you're talking about an 8-hour workday and you have workers coming out from Romney. I mean, I can tell you, I campaigned out there. It's a better part of a 2-hour drive.
Sure.
So now they drive out here for 2 hours on the clock. They only have a few hours to work, and then they have to drive back. So out of an 8-hour workday, you're on the road for 4 hours. So just for practical reasons. But this is something I said from the beginning. The Eastern Panhandle deserves and needs more attention on our roads, on our police. And locality pay is a big one for me. I've been a huge supporter of locality pay from the beginning. And for me, again, I fall back on my business experience, my military experience. From a business perspective, people behave based on incentive. And if you're going to make more money in Loudoun, Frederick, Washington County, that's where you're going to go, for the same work. And from a military perspective, we get paid different rates based on where we live. So if I'm working out of New York City, the Army pays me more to accommodate for the cost of living, versus I'm in the middle of Kansas. And so it's just common sense to me. Now we're going to have to, work with the rest of the legislature to figure out what kind of horse trading we need to do, so that those counties, get something that they need. But we've got to help our teachers, our police with this locality pay, so we can be competitive and keep our best people here in the state.
Hey, picking up on that, if I may, the emphasis of the last legislators was reducing income tax, reducing taxes, and I think that's near and dear to a lot of folks' minds. However, the infrastructure has suffered. We mentioned roads, but more than that is looking at the school building authority. There's in front of the school building authority $275 million request. The legislators allocated $50 million. A short we have needs that are getting farther and farther behind. You can extend that argument to salaries, state salaries, PEIA. There's a whole litany of things. How do you reconcile these two, Tom, keeping the taxes as low as possible and yet meeting the infrastructure needs?
And you have 2 minutes to answer that question.
Yeah, that's that's the you know, that I was joking around thinking that's why they pay us the big bucks, the $20,000 a year that we get. It's going to be a juggling act. You know, I think the good book talks about you know, if your gift is giving, give generously. If your gift is helping, you know, serve. If your gift is leadership, then do your best. Right? It's almost an admission that leadership is tough. I think that you know, in talks with my fellow legislators and Governor Morrissey, we're going to have to keep up the fight to keep taxes low, but we're also going to have to figure out how we can cut costs. And you know, if you remember, one of the big things for me when I ran was just cutting the size of the state government, because we have the same population now that we had in 1957, but our state government is 4 times the size. So I think that everything you mentioned, and I think, frankly, we need some pay raises for several key employees, especially in the judiciary system. But we're going to have to find some cuts and be very disciplined about the budget. So I fully expect some rigorous debate and budget battles upcoming, but that's what we were elected to do.
Tom, I want to thank you once again for coming in studio after the late drive last night. A little more highway time here. Much appreciated.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
That's Senator-elect Tom Willis at 8:59. This